raise your glass up high. Turn it up, it's time. Tall boy on the line. Everything will last. Raise your...
Welcome back to episode 293 of the Tallboy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, that beer is flowing to the deep, dark nether regions. And before we say hello to our guest, let's say hello to a man whose nether regions are deep and dark. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing well. Evening in the world. As always, I just love your little intros. It makes me feel so much happier. But yeah, no, all good in the world. I'd say sort of school holidays and such. So in the midst of summer vacation, as they say. So no work tomorrow, and I'm off to Ireland golfing for a week. So happy days.
I tell you what, he's got a good life. He has got a good life. So we are going to once more sit down with Ed Brown. Ed, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks, guys. Listen, I had a great time last time, and I definitely appreciate you guys having me back. This is fun. It's good.
Oh, absolute honor. Absolute honor. We really, really enjoyed that last episode. And as it dropped like last week or so.
Yeah, I have to say that, the jersey, though, being a Bengals fan, I was going to wear my Bengals gear, but here in the States it's pretty hot. I'm sure it is there too. And I thought, I'm not going to wear my jacket. I'm just gonna be the bigger man here, and just say, look, if you wish to embarrass yourself wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, then that's on you. All right, I'm just saying.
I had to go with the original TB12. I did say last time I was going to bust out the Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, I love Bradshaw, though. I do. I love Bradshaw. I do.
Everybody loves Bradshaw, I think.
Yeah,
definitely. So last time out, we were talking about Bigfoot, so people have reacted to that, really, really enjoyed it, had a whole load of listens to that episode. So thank you very much for joining us on that one.
Oh, it's fun.
So, I mean, primarily we discussed that, but you made us aware during that episode that actually that isn't just the subject of your investigations. You've investigated a number of other things, haven't you?
Sure. Oh yeah. I you name it, I've done it. If it's a mystery, I want to figure it out. And that's I think I might have mentioned on our last show that I my degree is in criminal investigation, so I just naturally have that very curious mind, and I if I don't know, I want to know, and I spend a lot of time working on that, but I enjoy it. I have fun.
Yeah, and we had a lot of fun listening to it, didn't we, guys?
Oh yeah, I mean, the last episode was amazing, incredible. And I think we just got laid to bear perhaps some misconceptions, etc. I thoroughly enjoyed the last one. So again, in advance, just a big thank you again from me, really, for tonight's episode as well. But I know that the sort of people out there in listener land reacted nice and positively to the last one. So yeah, look forward to this one.
Sure. Yeah,
indeed. Before we get to it, though, we need to say hello to Stuart Willis and hello to Hey, it's the Johnsons. Howdy from Missouri, fellas. Hello from sunny-ish Cheshire.
Missouri, just up the road from me. Yeah, that's awesome.
There you go. So a couple of the places that you mentioned then that you had visited, were very, very interesting to us. So you mentioned that you had visited the Skinwalker Ranch. So for our listeners who don't know too much about that, did you want to fill us in a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Skinwalker Ranch is a very mysterious place in northern Utah, and again, because of my work, I'm able to kind of make my way where I want to go, and I've been to a lot of places, and we actually had an interesting thing happen there. So the first thing we did was we went up on the mesas and we were looking down over the ranch, and so I got a good view of the ranch, which was pretty cool, and then because you can't just go on the property, you have to be invited. You have to, you have to know somebody somebody bigger than Ed Brown, you know what I mean, to get in that place. And I'm not that guy. And but while we were there, I don't know, there's a television show called The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, and Candace and Tom are like a married couple that live on the ranch, and they, kind of caretakers, and they came out. We sat and talked to them for a long time. It was that was pretty cool too. So but we did have an experience which was weird. Um, so we had my dog with us, and we were at the gate, and I thought, well, we're going to be leaving here pretty soon, so I took him out for a walk right there outside of the ranch, outside the gate, and I was walking him, and Claudia, who unfortunately she passed away, but we were dating at the time, and she was with me, and she was behind me, and I heard her say, you know, look at that bird, it's so pretty, and of course, I'm like, yeah, 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 I see it. It didn't even turn around, and but when we left, we kept hearing a bird whistle in the van. I mean, we lived in Los Angeles at the time, so this was a long drive, and we heard it periodically the entire drive, and it was just the weirdest thing. It's like, what in the world is that? And I still have no clue what it was, but that was pretty cool. That was a weird experience from Skinwalker Ranch. So that was pretty weird.
Yeah, a lot of people report, very, very different things that they experience when they're there, don't they?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
what was the atmosphere like when you were nearby then?
It's weird. I didn't really get that sense of dread or anything like that. It was interesting to be there, and I think personally, I just think that a lot of what people feel is based on reputation. You're already your senses are up. You're expecting things to happen. So when anything happens, it's amplified. It's worse, and it probably comes across as though something magnificent happened, even if it didn't. But yeah,
And it's strange because again, I think we sort of touched on it when we spoke on the last episode about almost in the sort of I say the conspiracy world and everything else, and in the sort of the ghost world, etc.
sure.
People will actually go out of their way to try to disprove things that happen, to then assume that then it must be something that's happened as such. So
Right, right.
people's and we sort of joked, and there was me and Adam, we were saying that a curtain twitches or something. Me and Adam are like, oh my god, did you see that sort of thing? And like the other guy's like, yeah, it's just a curtain moving, dude. Nothing happened. And like we're like, no way. Yeah, and I suppose that heightened sense of, I suppose, anticipation of actually what could happen. You're already,
Yeah.
your spider senses are already like at 10, and
Exactly.
any sort of thing that happens, you're like, well, that has to be something.
Well, I think it's
So
very important for any researcher of any topic. I think everybody has to be aware of that going in. You can't let your perception to lead you. You've got to bring yourself back down to earth. You've got to calm yourself out. You've got to enjoy it and go where it leads you. Not um, every little noise isn't a ghost. Every little thing isn't Bigfoot. Every sound isn't aliens. It's just, like you said, talk about the curtain moving, and even in a big building, if somebody opened a door on the other side of the building, it's going to cause a vacuum on your side. So it's just you have to know that there are other possibilities, and you got to take a chance. Yeah,
Yeah,
take a
yeah,
look at it.
definitely. So Hayes Johnson says that they always figured that the Skinwalker Ranch is a bridge between dimensions or a link to the spiritual world to people like me. So just out of interest then, so it's very famous for, extraterrestrial beings, that kind of stuff, and unusual creatures being seen there. You didn't see
Sure.
anything like that when you were there then, no?
No, I never saw anything. We did see we did see a pretty good sized dog. At least I assume it was a dog running in a field from the driveway. It was like if you're going up the driveway towards the gate, it would have been on the left side going away from the ranch, going back to where we were coming from. But it was out there pretty far, and we didn't see it again. Just assumed it was just a dog, but
yeah.
you gotta, you don't know. So yeah, that is one of the things. You never know.
No, I mean that a lot of people report seeing
Yeah,
canine-like creatures, don't they? You know what I mean? So they may be
yeah,
dogs, but like the skinwalkers themselves comes from sort of American Indian time, doesn't it? So Native Americans tell the tale of these creatures
correct.
who were human or humanoid anyway, and could shapeshift into dog-like creatures and
Yeah.
other sorts of things. So who
Exactly.
knows? So,
Yeah.
what's your take on it? You must have a, you're an intelligent man. You like to investigate, but at the same
Right.
time, where you don't have knowledge, there's belief. So, what's your
Sure.
belief in what's there?
Well, I know people who have been on the ranch who have had some crazy experiences. Um, but so, based on what they've told me and what they've experienced, I think your description a moment ago could very well be right on the button. I think it is and I think there's several spots on the planet like that. I don't think it's just Skinwalker Ranch. I think Skinwalker Ranch just is the most famous one, but they're the place we're researching in Florida that we go down. In fact, we're going again in September. As a matter of fact, we go 2 or 3 times a year, and it's very similar, and it's I believe personally, to answer your question, to be more direct, I guess I believe that it is a I think there's something to it. It's hard to really put my finger. I'm being so elusive to your question. I don't mean to. I just I don't know, but there's definitely something there. Is I do believe that there are other dimensions. I do believe that they can cross back and forth. I truly believe that. I mean, I've seen something with my own eyes that I can't explain. That would make me believe that, and I think that. I think that's just their way of getting where they want to be on the planet or wherever they're from. I think there's wormholes or whatever you want to call it. That's what I think. Yeah.
I mean, it would make. We've talked about extraterrestrials. You're a believer in extraterrestrials, aren't you?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah,
I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm not, but
sure.
in terms of the time it'll take to travel to get here, effectively wherever they came from would then almost cease to exist if they were to travel near the speed of light. However,
Well, you're assuming that you're actually traveling.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had something like a wormhole, like
Mhm.
or an interdimensional window or door or portal or whatever that could be, I guess that would explain away that
Sure.
length of time that it would, and we've got to be open minded to these things because we certainly don't understand any of the mysteries of the universe apart
Right.
from a very small fraction of the truth be told.
Yeah, and
Right.
look, the wormhole thing is, I say, is a phenomenon that lots and lots and lots of people subscribe to. There's also the swell of opinion that would suggest that we only know the distances based upon our knowledge of current physics and travel and speed and everything else. And actually, who's to say that actually there aren't races or whatever out there that have managed to sort of interstellar travel and beyond light speed, etc., etc. So
Right.
we only really measure those distances according to laws that we currently understand. So who's to say there's not a civilization out there, a world out there that's far, 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 far superior to ours at the moment in terms of the science, the technology, the intellect, and actually they have been able to interstellar travel, which would mean that actually they are capable of traveling vast, vast, vast distances. But the wormhole absolutely is something that, is it credible? Certainly, there's a huge swell of opinion to say they actually do exist, and that's how you can warp time, etc., and space, etc. So, again, have these people exploited these? Potentially so, but as you said, Ed, that's assuming that you are traveling and that actually you're not already here, type thing. So, yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Well, there's one theory, and I won't say that I'm not saying this is accurate. I'm just saying this is a theory, and just the fact that it's and I think it's a plausible theory. But imagine um, in a gymnasium, and there's like all these curtains hanging up, all the way down through the gymnasium, and they're just like only this far apart all the way. Every once in a while, two of those curtains will touch somewhere, all right? And they believe that when those curtains touch, imagine each curtain is a different dimension. When those curtains touch, you know, things can go from one to the other and vice versa. So these are guys a lot smarter than I am coming up with these theories. That's not something I just came up with. That's something
Yeah.
that's been talked about in the scientific community. So there's some probability to it, or at least some. It's plausible.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, let's be honest as well, guys. Ed's very clearly familiar with Tall Boy Radio because he started off by saying, "Imagine a gymnasium." It's clear that the two of us have never seen one.
Yeah, I didn't mean a workout gymnasium. I just meant.
Yeah, well, either way.
That's fine.
Yeah.
How do
Just
you spell that again?
yeah, yeah, that's a GIN. That's how I spell
Yeah,
it. Yeah. So just out of interest, then, other than Skinwalker Ranch, we'll get to a couple other places which are famous.
Sure.
Well, I'd like to hear some of the most interesting places that you've investigated and some of the more interesting things that you've seen. We'd be glad to hear any of them.
Sure. I mean, if I've been to the Bell Witch Cave. I've done a pretty good investigation there. We've been to the Octagon House, Thomas House. I will say, and I've had different things happen at each one of those, which is pretty cool. But probably one of the weirdest things that I've ever had happen, and I so I went to the Roswell crash site. Right now, if you were to go to Roswell and you go to the museum there and you say, "Hey, where did the spaceship crash? Where can I go see where it crashed?" They give you these coordinates of something that's not even accurate, that because they just don't want people going to the real site because it's actually on somebody's personal property. And you literally have to get permission, which we did. We had permission to go. And we were doing a documentary called Roswell 80 Years Later. And I was the drone operator for the documentary. And we get out there and we go into the gate, we go through the property and we wave at the guy as we go by. He waves at us. We go back there and I'm looking at the GPS. I'm going, okay, so it's got to be like right over here, and there was a fence line there. And so we ended up, we went over and we opened the gate. Now it was, I don't know if we were allowed to or not, but we did. We figured that's probably their property as well, so we went and did it. But I noticed that when we were driving up and around this little road, it's just all it is tire marks. This is like a really small little farm road. And you go up, and I noticed that on the ground there were these rocks about this big around. That makes you guys see, they're probably about the size of basketballs, maybe a little bit smaller. And they were lined up, and they made this huge arrow on the side of the road. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. That's just kind of odd. Just stuck in the back of my mind. Didn't think anything else about it for weeks. All right. We drive on up, we get up to the top of the hill where the crash site is, and there's basically you get up there and all there is a turnaround. The road ends right there. And that's very important as well. The road ends right there. And we got out and sure enough, there is this huge divot right there in the ground. And this thing is like, 60, 70 feet wide. It's like 40 feet deep. I mean, it's like a cliff. I mean, it's just this huge divot in the earth. And we're like, wow, this is pretty cool. And there's a plaque on the ground that Sci-Fi Channel had put up there. And then there's an obelisk that's people have built just putting rocks on it, and it's pretty high. And I just thought it was pretty cool. Well, we had fun while we were there. And I actually found a rock and on one side, on the bottom of the rock, it looked normal. It was sharp edges, looked like a rock, but on the top, it was smooth. Like it had been melted. It looked like there were like it had been running, it was as if a very large amount of heat was on that area at some point, and that was pretty wild. In fact, that rock I donated it to the International Cryptozoology, the International Zoology Museum in Bangor, Maine. So it's up in Maine right now in the museum, and it's pretty wild. So anyway, we have our fun, we do our filming, we do our stuff, and we leave. I got home, and I was like, man, I wonder if I could find it on Google Earth. So I get on Google Earth, and I find the ranch. I'm following where I went, even the gate, and then I saw that big arrow, and I'm like, oh, that's why that was there. It's to let people know if they wanted to go on Google Earth, they could find it again. Perfect. So when I follow the road up on Google Earth, and it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. It doesn't stop. On Google Earth, it's been changed. I'm not kidding you. It's been changed. Where we went, while I was there is different than
Wow.
what Google Earth is showing. So Google Earth actually changed that location on Google Earth, which is pretty cool. That's I mean, that's it's like I don't know how you. There's no other way to look at it. It's different. That's kind of
Nah,
wild.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
I'll think about Google Earth in a different way from here on in, dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that smacks of either there was something there that they don't want people to know that's there, or certainly they don't want people to sort
Yeah.
of to Google and to find out sort of thing. So yeah, that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
So also when the Roswell crash happened, it actually skipped. So there's technically three different locations where the craft supposedly hit because it hit and skipped, right?
Yeah.
The where we were then was the first location where it hit hard and then just shattered, and it the the pod where the aliens were in supposedly skipped a couple more times. When we were down at one of the other locations, I took the drone and I took it up in the air, and I had literally had just taken it up in the air and got it out, and I was maybe 200 feet away from where I was, and my monitor said a message came on. It said, "Return your craft, or we will take control of it." And we
Wow.
actually got that on video. That's in the documentary, which was pretty cool too. So
All
yeah.
right.
So who did that? Why? There's nothing out there. There's this is in the middle of nowhere. It's just cow land. There's no grass. There's no nothing. It's just rocks and dirt. It's crazy.
And and and,
Desert.
and if there's nothing, plain devil's advocate, if there's nothing
Sure.
there, why would somebody do that? And the cynic in me would be, well, actually, it goes to add to the myth, the aura, the mystique, the intrigue, and will keep people coming back. And I suppose, is there some sort of local economy that relies on people going there, and that there's rooms to let, or there's restaurants, and if people stop going there because actually there was nothing weird happening, then the local economy would cease, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So is that, I don't know, is it part of, and I suppose I'm just trying to think, why would somebody do that? If there's nothing there, why would you create that intrigue or that mystique or that message? Because then you're now telling it to us, and somebody listens to this in America goes, wow, that's pretty cool. I'll go there and I'll have a look for myself, and so on and so on and so on. And
Just get permission first, yes, but yeah.
Yeah, just get permission first. Yeah, but again, I wouldn't. Is it? And I don't know. Obviously, never been. Don't know. But are they doing it to try to almost? I don't know.
I mean, for that one, like you say, if there's nothing there and it is just a crashed weather balloon, so they claimed, then why would you keep people away?
Correct.
If you did want to generate interest, I'm not sure that. I mean, don't get me wrong, that is interesting. It's an interesting way of going about it. But you send a drone up there with a couple of lights on it late at night, and the guys who are, let's face it, who are there at the museum and might have been drinking something and smoking something, then they're going to be more convinced by that than a video of a guy being told to keep his drone away.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
that seems to me that there's something there that isn't want to be filmed. Now, I'll be curious. Sorry, carry on.
No, yeah, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. There was an obvious attempt for whatever reason. Now, there is a small little like private airport that wasn't really far away. So we decided that if it's anything legitimate, it would only be the airport. But I don't know how they would intercept my drone and actually send me a message, through my drone. That was I'd never seen that before. That was pretty wild. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
So while you were there, I was wondering, if you spoke to anybody who'd seen anything or had seen any sort of experiences. I mean, we're dating back to what was, I think, was the 1950s, wasn't it? The Roswell, New Mexico incident.
Yeah, I think it was 40.
Was it 40s? Was it
42 or something like that? Yeah,
something like that. I couldn't remember.
I don't remember.
It was shortly after World War II, anyway. I know that much. But hey, it's the Johnsons want to know, just curious, but how many people have you guys met that have reluctantly told you UFO experiences that they've had, but due to being worried about, being judged, that they want to maybe keep that to themselves?
Yeah, it happens. It's on through Roswell specifically. I wasn't a part of the crew that was doing the interviews with the people, so I don't know. I was out basically just getting B-roll, and I did sit in on the interview with the mayor of Roswell, which coincidentally, the guy is an aerospace engineer. So
Right.
it was kind of odd, but yeah. So it was in general in other places. I've had people tell me stories about what they've seen, and and they're a little touch, taken back by it, and not wanting to, like, don't give my name, don't tell, just, this is between us, and what do you think I saw, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So it happens, I can't put a number on it, but yeah, it happens.
Yeah. And not far, well, not far geographically speaking, I suppose, from the Roswell site is Area 51, which in itself there's a few rumors about that. And how close have you managed to get to Area 51?
I was standing right at the gate, as a matter of fact. We were, so there's actually a couple different places that you can enter Area 51 legally if you're allowed. All right. Let me point that out. I'm not saying anybody could just go to those places and go in. I'm just saying there's a couple different known places. The mailbox, the black mailbox, just to get that out of the way real quick, that's totally made up. There is a huge black mailbox, and people do keep stealing it because they think it's a mailbox to nowhere. But the guy whose property who has to keep putting out new mailboxes is getting pretty frustrated by it, and so people keep stealing his mailbox. But so there is this fable story that, because this mailbox does seem to be sitting in just an odd place. It's right in the middle of nowhere, and people are thinking, oh, that's where they communicate. They're sending messages and blah blah blah. Well, no, that's a real mailbox. So leave it alone. Don't take the mailbox. And but the so the front gate, when we went to that one, we go down this really long road, and it's actually kind of funny because there were people inside the building right there at the front gate. They never came outside. They never showed themselves, but you could see silhouettes through the window because it's all like tinted and everything. You can't just see inside. And so we knew people were in there, but there were signs everywhere saying, no photographs, don't take pictures, blah blah blah. And I'm thinking to myself, well, here in America, we have the right to take pictures out here as long as we're in public property. Then I started thinking, like, where is the property line? Maybe we're not on public property. I don't know where the line is. So we decided not to take a lot of pictures. And but I did have my dash cam rolling the whole time and didn't tell nobody. So yeah, but I've been right up to the gate. Didn't have really anything interesting happen there other than we were definitely being watched. There was a ridge way up behind on the property, but way up behind the guard shack there, or the gate. There was a white SUV sitting there just over enough where they could see us. You can only see enough of the front of the car, the SUV. But yeah, they were keeping an eye on us, which was pretty interesting because I'm like, we didn't pose any threat.
Yeah.
But we went to lunch and had lunch at the Little Alien, and that was pretty cool. That got to say I did that. But I got to tell
Nice.
you,
Do you know anybody that has gone into Area 1, or and I will say this obviously legally, obviously don't want to get you or anybody else in trouble, sort of thing, but
Sure.
In your line of work, in terms of the type of people that you network with, have you spoken to anybody about potentially what they saw, experienced when they got in there, or not?
I don't know anyone who has actually been inside of Area 51. Right. At least no one has admitted to me that they were inside of Area 51.
Right.
I mean, there are people like Bob Lazard who have claims, and he's actually, there's probably some truth to what he's saying. His accounts are pretty well verified, and even and even the fact, even the things that weren't able to be verified, it's the same thing that happened at Roswell. Government intervention. You can't tell me you can't tell me that Google Earth on their own took out, where that crash site is. No way. That was physically changed, and I looked at it really close, and I can't see the brake lines or anything else. So it was professionally done, and it was just crazy. So if the government is going to go on, get into Google Earth and change Google Earth, you can't convince me they can't get in and say, nope, this guy never worked here. You know, so yeah, I think Bob Lazar. I think there's some truth to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Bob Lazar is he doesn't come across as a wacko. When you listen to these people and they have these far-flung ideas, the stuff he talks about, like back engineering, and with everything that's been seen around Area 51, with everything that's been seen around New Mexico and the different sites like that, the idea that maybe, just maybe, the US government got hold of an alien spacecraft, say, for example, or whatever was that crashed there, whether it had aliens in it or not, and then back engineered it. And then, there's all these stories about, where did the fiber come from? Where did that concept come from? The idea of bouncing light down a fiber to send information, things like the stealth jet bomber, which seemed to come out of nowhere, this technology to go undetected. And all of a sudden you do think, well, maybe, just maybe, what this guy is saying is, although difficult to verify, because let's face it, they wouldn't want it to be verified. But,
Right, right.
the guy talks a lot of sense, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does. And and like you said, he's a very intelligent guy. Um, he's obviously qualified to do that, to have worked in a facility of that matter. But I think this whole reverse engineering thing, I've always found this interesting because I think that there are things that you mentioned the stealth bomber. Like I think it's just as plausible that we made another um, plane better. I don't think we necessarily needed to reverse engineer anything. We just found ways to make something better. And I think, but I do believe that, when you talk about fiber optics and things of that nature, I think there's some truth to some of that stuff, and I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there are things, look at cell phones, I mean, cell phones in such a short amount of time. I remember when I was a kid. Now I'm old now. I'm 58 years old. I'm not a kid anymore. But I remember I found a beeper at the bus stop waiting for the school bus, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So in my lifetime, we've gone from absolutely zero, just on the wall telephones, the rotary telephones, to satellite phones that can reach anywhere, anytime. And that just seems like a very short amount of time for that much technology. So, you have as much, in my cell phone, I have as much uh, capability as Apollo 13 had, in my phone, so that's, that's, that's saying a lot to me, that I think there's some truth to a lot of that reverse engineering.
Yeah, and just to pick up on what sort of H.C. Johnson's mentioned, Bob seems like he doesn't care about fame or money. He seems, he looks like a guy who really has got no reason to put himself out there to be ridiculed, because nobody wants to live like that unless
Sure.
You are in some sort of ranch somewhere drinking lots of things and smoking lots of things that perhaps alter your state of mind, sort of thing. But you wouldn't knowingly want to put yourself out there at the forefront of potential ridicule, really. And as I say, he doesn't go around, lauding it or this, that, and the other, so you sort of then
Right.
start to think, well, actually, why would he? If that almost leads a little bit more credibility to actually what he's been saying, because actually,
Sure.
why would he say that if it isn't? Do you know what I mean? So again, H.C. Johnson, thanks for that. Yeah, I agree. He does come across as a pretty straight up, genuine guy that genuinely believes what he's saying.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
you can actually take that a step farther. So you could say, not only, and everything you just said is 100% accurate in my opinion, but take it a step farther. He was saying things that at the time nobody knew. He was talking about having to drive to the airport in Las Vegas and get on an unmarked plane and fly to Area 51. Nobody knew that at the time. That wasn't a
Yeah.
thing. Well, we know that happens now. So he was making claims that at the time people were like, well, I don't know anything. We not even talking about it. Nobody even knows about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, I think it's a very possibility, very possible.
And again, again, I haven't been there. I don't. I mean, obviously, I know bits and bobs about it, just because you pick it up on news reels and social media and this, that, and the other. If there isn't anything there, then why effectively build something there? Does that make sense? Like, why there? Like, there's now a runway there. There is a facility there. Like, why?
Right, right.
Why there? You know, if there isn't anything, why there? And
Well, they
again, that leaves some questions.
sure, they have since come out and said yes, it is a top secret location, but they still deny the alien interventions and
Yeah,
alien crafts and things of that nature. But Area 51 is now publicly known as a top secret location. You know that
yeah.
they work on new aircraft, things of that nature. But yeah,
So
and
just
then there's also a good possibility that it's a carrot, if you will. You know that we've got Area 51 over here. You know, here's Area 51. You know, we're going to be hush and hush and hush, knowing people are going to come to gravitate to it.
Yeah.
But way over here is where they're doing their stuff. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens as well. But we just don't know where over here is yet. You know, so
no, it's a classic government sleight of hand movement
yeah,
and all
of
that,
course,
isn't it? Yeah.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
what
I
did
don't trust our
what,
government.
oh no, I don't trust ours, and I probably trust yours less, truth be told. But
Yeah, yeah, smart.
well, only slightly less though. So in terms of the Storm Area 51 movement that happened a few years ago, what did you make of that?
Um, I'll just be on. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't care. I think it was the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. Silly.
Yeah.
Nobody was. It wasn't going to happen. Um, they're like, oh, if we storm with 1 million people, they'll never kill. Well, you know what? They'll find jail cells. You know, you're not going to. It's
Yeah.
stupid. Plus, from where you'd have to go into the gate to get to where the buildings are is a very long way. You're not going to run that way. You're not. It was silly. It was hyped as a. It was just silly. I'll leave it at that.
And again, you know, you see the signs, you know, please don't enter. You will be shot, sort of thing.
Yeah,
You know,
and
so why would you enter? Because there is a damn
right.
high chance of you being shot, and if you're not being shot, then you'll be thrown in jail for the rest of your life. So actually, what is the point?
Yeah, I saw a video actually of a couple guys on motorcycles who accidentally crossed the line on the other entrance where there isn't really a gate, and they had gone a little farther than they meant to. And man, I'm going to tell you, man, on that video, they stormed up on them like man, and
Yeah,
they were not having it. No, it was not good. Luckily, that nobody got shot, but they did take him into custody and check him out, and they kept him for a while, and finally let him go. But it was, yeah, they're not messing around.
Uh, those guys are on a watch list somewhere, absolutely.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Yeah, yeah,
So,
they
so
are now.
just out of interest, then the places you visited, Area 51, Roswell, New Mexico. What do the locals make of those places?
That's a great question, actually. So Amityville, for example, when I think I'd mentioned I'd been to the Amityville Horror House, and that was pretty cool. Again, I didn't get to go inside. You know, it's personally, privately owned, and they don't want nothing to do with it. You know, in fact, they know that our laws let us film anything we can see from public. You know, and and I'm sure yours are the same. But so there's signs saying do not cross this line, do not cross this line. But the town of Amityville absolutely hates it. It's a bad reputation. Villisca, Iowa, same thing. The town itself is where the Villisca Axe Murder House is.
yeah,
Same thing there. They absolutely hate it. Roswell, they embrace it. They love it. They do conferences. They do things. They absolutely love what's going on there. Area 51. I mean, gosh, there's only what is that little town? Rachel, Nevada, I believe it is, and it's very small. And so there's really not a town there. It's
yeah,
mostly Vegas is kind of where everything for Area 51 is. Yeah, but
yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. That's a good
Mm.
question.
And do you think that's basically because of the nature of, or the difference in nature of potentially like the Amityville house and Area 51? Area 51 is a conspiracy theory, what's happened, and it piques your interest, whereas actually the Amityville house is like, holy shit, like some bad shit went down there type thing. And it's that, I suppose, the difference in actually what happened at each of those places that maybe is a stigma attached to the Amityville and so on.
Oh, 100%. And I'll give you another example. And one of my instances, I should have said this one in the first place. One of my favorite places I've ever been was Plainfield, Wisconsin, which is the hometown and where everything happened with Ed Gein, the crazy guy, the guy who was digging up bodies and making stuff out of their skin and stuff, just crazy. I've been there. Um, Actually, my most popular video on my TikTok is a video of Ed Gein's property that I did there. And dude, I got like 26,000 views on it, which is awesome. And for me, it's great. I put it that way. To these people, it's nothing. But Plainfield absolutely hates it. When I was standing outside the gate with my camera, and I'm by myself, and I'm literally just setting my phone like this, filming. A guy drives by me in a truck, and he flips me off. He just didn't want me there. It
Wow.
was they absolutely hate it, and it's for them. And to make your point, for them, it has to do with the the atrocities that happened and in their town, and it makes them look bad. They feel, and they don't want their lives to be disrupted any more than it already has.
Yeah.
So, and respectfully, I wherever I go, whatever I do, I try to be as respectful as I possibly can, and you have to be. If you're not, then you shouldn't be doing it. But um, Amityville's a lot like that. Amityville's basically the same thing. They actually changed the address of the Amityville Horror House because they wanted to stop people from coming. If they couldn't find the address, they would quit coming, is what they thought.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot there's a lot of places like that. And you're right. These are all like murder, suicide, terrible things like that that's happening in those places. Whereas in Roswell, which embraces it, and Las Vegas embraces it, and all these other places like that, because to them it's like it's an event that happened
Yeah.
there, not to them, but there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? And
Yeah,
so I think you're
absolutely.
right. That's a good point.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, at the end of the day, some people lost their lives there. So do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
absolutely.
it's attracted attention for the wrong reasons.
Sure.
So one of the things that you do, like you say, you visited the Amityville house, you visited Ed Gein's place, and you also look into, like say, the paranormal as well, don't you? So
Sure.
you investigate haunted sites. So
Sure.
Amityville being one. Can you tell us any places you visit? They don't even need to be necessarily famous, but anywhere you've had an experience which has really made you rethink what life means in many ways.
Yeah, there was I'll give you a great little story. This was years ago, and so in the little town that I grew up in, which is in Ohio, there's a little pond that you're not allowed to go on. It's actually an old um, quarry type place, where they used to get stone and rocks and everything from, and you're not allowed on the property, but they also don't really enforce it. And there's this nice little pond there. It's a great place to go fishing, and every once in a while people will sneak in there and go fishing. Well, here I talk about being respectful, and I'm going to tell you about how I snuck on this place and went fishing one time. So my brother and I, we snuck on and went fishing one night, and man, it was just the craziest things are happening. We had a like I heard something walking through the gravel behind me, and there's nothing there. Now, by the way, this location, I forgot to add one thing that's very important. So back in the day when the mobsters were running around in Chicago and New York and all that was going on, Al Capone would come to Hamilton, Ohio, and he would hide out there. In fact, it took the nickname Little Chicago because of it. And there were a lot of people came up missing and believed to have been dumped in that location.
Yeah.
So, but that was years ago, and that's all stories. I don't know the validity to it, but that's the stories. So anyway, we're fishing, and we do crazy. We heard things walking. Our tackle box fell over one time for no reason. I was sitting on a log, and there was a good 4 feet of space here, to from where I was sitting to the end of the log. But when I picked up my fishing pole, my line had been wrapped around it like 3 times, and it's like, what the heck? So just weird stuff. So we get home, and I was telling his daughter's boyfriend, my niece's boyfriend, I said, we need to go back and do a paranormal investigation here because that was pretty wild. So one night we did. We go there really late at night. It's really dark, and got my night vision, which was pretty poor at the time. But I was the to make a long story short, we were standing on the bank right where we were fishing that night, and we heard what sounded like something walking on water. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's what it sounded like. And we're like, what in the world is that? And I said, I don't know. Well, let's just do a test. So I said, all right, if something is out there, take 5 steps towards me. Guys, I'm not kidding. On cue, splat, 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 splat. And it
Wow.
stopped. And he's like, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like, wait a minute. We got to test this theory. We can't just leave it at that. So I said, all right, that was pretty cool. But if you're there, if that was real, just take 3 more steps. Splat, splat, splat. Kid you not, the craziest thing I ever. We are like, all right, we're done. We'll leave. We promised them if they gave us a sign, we would leave, and they gave us a sign. So that was
Well,
pretty crazy.
I don't think I'd have waited for the sign. I think I'd have been off. I think, holy
Yeah.
shit! I'd have been thinking about that
That was
quicker than what?
Yeah, and it sounded like it was like literally like 20 feet into the water. It wasn't like in the middle of the pond. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like right there, and it's a very distinct sound. Like almost like somebody took their hand and was smacking the water. But it was nothing was there. So that was like my first. I had had I had done some paranormal things before that, but to that point, that was my favorite experience that I'd ever had. Because
Wow.
that there's no logical explanation. There's no way around what we heard because we're standing there looking right there at the water. We can see there's nothing there, but sure enough, something was walking towards us. Yeah,
You never
it
know.
was
With
pretty
all
cool.
that mafia connections, maybe there's somebody out
Yeah,
there in a pair of
yeah,
concrete
yeah.
boots.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Little Chicago. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
telling you. I wouldn't be at all surprised. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Someone's been 86. So, wow. Is that what, obviously you said you've done a few paranormal investigations before that. Is that what really piqued your interest and got you into looking into these things?
No, not that specific event. So how do I explain it? For years, I will hear, and this is basically what got me into the paranormal aspect of stuff, I guess. But I had a I would hear like it sounds great. I don't think I've ever talked about this in a podcast before, so you guys, this might be breaking news. I occasionally I'll hear like my name. Someone will just say, "Hey Ed" or Eddie, and nobody's around. Nobody's nothing. I was at my mom's one night and I ended up spending the night and I was sleeping in the lazy boy in the living room and I was like I had just gone to sleep. I mean, I had just probably literally just gone out. Clear as day. Hey Eddie. And I open my eyes real quick and I'm looking down the hallway and it's real dark and I'm like, what? Who? what can I help you? What do you want? Thinking it's my mom, maybe my aunt, I don't know. And nobody was there, and I was like, that's really weird. I thought just in my head. So I laid my head back down, I closed my eyes, and I was still awake, and I heard it again. And I actually got up and walked down the hallway. Everybody was asleep, nobody was up. It was just crazy. I've experienced that like many times, and I still at my mom's funeral, as a matter of fact, we were at the funeral home. My mother passed away in 2014, and we were the lobby of the funeral home was really really big, and there were people like in little small groups around. And I was walking to the restroom by myself in the middle of the room, nobody near me, plain as day. Hey Ed, and I stopped and turned around as if somebody had just said something to me, and there was nobody there. So that I think the little things like that I've experienced definitely heightened my awareness to the phenomenon, and I've always been curious for
Mm.
years. And so yeah, but having your name called for no reason, and it's still, I mean, it hasn't happened in months, I'm sure, but it's still happens to this day. I could hear it tomorrow. Who knows?
And is it the same voice? So is it always in those two different locations? Was it the same voice, or
Oh yeah,
yeah, definitely same.
every time it happens, it's the exact same voice. The only difference is sometimes it says Ed and sometimes it says Eddie, which is interesting in itself because when everybody on my mom's side of the family, my mom and dad were divorced when I was like 2, and everybody on my mom's side of the family all called me Ed or Eddie, and everybody on my dad's side of the family called me Jimmy or James or Jim because my name is James Edward Brown. So um, so I had all these different names. So whatever it is, in my opinion, was coming from my mother's side of the family, but I don't know. I don't know who it would have been.
Wow.
I don't know. So
I mean, one of the questions has to be, why do you call yourself Ed Brown rather than James Brown?
there's your reason.
Yeah,
I was going to say you answer yourself.
It answers itself, doesn't it? That question.
That's right. There's your answer.
So, just out of interest, then, one thing we know is when we had your good lady on the podcast as well, she sees things and she hears things as well. Has she ever heard it?
Sure. No, not like it's only something I hear. No, like even I'm always alone. I'm never around anybody. There's never like it's not like we're sitting in the car and I hear it. And I go, oh, did you hear that? It's not like that. It's just really weird. And again, it hasn't happened in a long time, but when it does, it just comes out of nowhere and it's just a crazy. And it's so clear. So I don't know. I don't know I have no idea. I feel silly even talking about it, to be honest with you, but it's
no, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't, because again, and this is I think we discussed this, like say with your better half. When people are attuned to these things, it makes total sense that anything else that is from another realm will be completely aware of that. And that all of a sudden that they're going about their business, whether they're in this realm. I'm not going to pretend to understand how it happens. I'm not going to put forward a theory as to why it happens, but they're very, very clearly aware, and they'll know when they're being ignored, and they'll pick up on those that recognize them. So if they were to, for yourself, who is akin to it, you're very, very open-minded, you're very open to these things, it would make total sense that if anything were to reach out, it would reach out to you rather than to say Dave, who occasionally does the podcast with us, who is less of a believer.
Yeah. I think I mean, on the believing spectrum, I think I'm sort of one side, and I do genuinely believe that there are things out there, and I personally feel as though I have seen a ghost. And I've told that story on, lots of different sort of podcast episodes. I genuinely feel as though I've seen my mum after she'd passed. So, and again, nobody will convince me that I haven't.
Right.
And so I'm very much on this side of the spectrum, and I think Dave is like way over there on that side. And I think Ad is more in the middle and is very, in a way, open-minded and not shut off from it, but actually yet to be convinced as such. So, and actually that's, in a way, I suppose, when we do episodes on supernatural and think that's why we work so well, because you've got like the straight guy over there that's like, no, definitely not. You got me there. No, that definitely happened. And Adam is sort of somewhere in the middle.
Well, let me tell you another quick story. This is right on the same line, and this one was and again, true story. So my brother's wife's father, his name was Russ, and he passed away. Great guy, by the way. He's a very nice guy. And after his funeral, his mother was still alive. She was really up there. I mean, she was very elderly, but she was still alive. And we all went to their house for dinner after the funeral, kind of as a family get together thing. And they were all sitting in the kitchen, talking and stuff. And his mother was looking down the hallway from her vantage point, and she said, Russ, why don't you come in here and sit down? And they're like, who are you talking to? She goes, Russ, he's standing right there. So, she saw him and actually just assumed he was standing there, and we're trying to get him to come in and sit down. So that was but it sounds out there, but when you see it and you hear it enough, it's like, okay, there's some truth to it. When my mother passed away, same thing. I was down by her feet. The family was around her. There's 5 of us kids, and plus some grandkids around us. But we had her bed surrounded, and I was like right down at her feet, and she's laying there, and she opened her eyes, and she looked right over my shoulder. Well, she wasn't looking at me, I'll tell you that. She looked right over my shoulder, and she said, "Mommy, Daddy." She saw her mom and dad. She saw my grandma and grandpa. You
Yeah.
know, and there's nothing, like you just said. There's nothing anybody can say to convince me any other ways. That
Yeah.
That was. There's no way that happened.
Yeah.
And no, you can't convince me anything else.
No,
I agree.
and I just think that there's so many stories, and particularly, if you move maybe perhaps away from go to back to sort of UFO and this, that, and the other, there's so many stories that from so many different parts of the world, and people in different parts of the world, and I mean vast differences. You go to Australia, to America, to Russia, to wherever, and they all recount exactly the same experiences. So they've got no means of communicating to each other. They've got no means of effectively colluding a story, yet each of their individual accounts are incredibly accurate in terms of what they felt, what they witnessed, what they perceived, how they interacted. And to me, that's like, that points to something. It's not just random people making stuff up, because anybody can make up a random story. But when lots of different people in lots of different parts of the world that have zero opportunity to communicate, and we're talking pre-social media and all pre-cell phone and all of that, and their account of what happened, and the alien abduction or alien sightings, whatever it may be, is absolutely the same.
Of course.
To me, that's like you have to then start asking a question.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%, and you're right. That happens. There's so many examples of just that same idea, that theory principle. It happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a quick one I need to shout out. There's a little bit of a distraction, but hey, it's the Johnsons. Just read your message there about, seeing the UFO. Drop us an email, mail@tallboyradio.com. We'd love to have you guests on the podcast and talk about that. I'd love to hear more about that. Stuart wants to know then, the men in black, do you think they're real? Now, last time you were on, you spoke about Bigfoot and a guy who'd taken a plaster cast of a footprint that he'd seen, and the next minute some guy in suits turn up and took it away from him. I'm going to suggest then that you're likely to believe in this that they exist.
Sure. No, I definitely think there is a secret organization or team, the Men in Black, whatever they actually call themselves. I don't know. But I do believe there is a team of individuals. I don't know that I buy into they're aliens, and that some of these far theories that are going around. But do I think there are a Men in Black? Yes, absolutely. There's definitely a secret government agency that is called upon when needed for things just like that. Yes.
Quick question then. Do you believe then that effectively the Men in Black, and you say you don't necessarily believe that they're aliens or whatever? There's a swell of opinion. I don't necessarily agree with this one, but potentially they are time travelers, and they are visiting us because they've been seen in various different times of our history as such, and then it's like, well, how can that again? How can they appear in that way and then 50, 60, 70, 100 years later appear in another way, but appear exactly the same, if that makes sense? So is that something that again has some credibility? I'm not sure. I don't know. Can they be photoshopped? Is there evidence for it? I don't know. But again, there's a sort of opinion to think that actually they are, and we are being visited, and they can time shift, because again, you see these photos of them and you're like, shit, like, well, why are they there? And why are they dressed in that way when actually they're not dressed in that way?
Yeah, I mean the idea of time travel is a very interesting one, and I think that how do I say this? And I guess this is going to almost give you a time warp answer. I guess I believe it's something that will happen. I mean, they've already been able to predetermine what you're going to say based on things. There's a device. I read about this device. I've never actually seen it, for the record, but I read about this device that they'd already made, that when you get ready to hit the button, there's like several buttons, and you by choice you get to hit which one you want. but it actually lights up before you do,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, how does it know, so,
Yeah.
and they say that that's a form of time travel, in a sense. I think so. I do think that there's going to come a time when time travel is possible.
Yeah.
And then when they come back, so where are they coming from? I mean,
Yeah.
what you're referring to, the people in the pictures and things, the guy in Canada that was wearing the M shirt, the hat that didn't fit, and wearing camera that didn't even exist at the time.
Yeah.
These things are the sunglasses, I believe it was, not a camera. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I know exactly what you're referring to, and it's like, okay, time travel is such a a wild idea, because if time travel were ever invented, even in the future, why would Hitler have been able to get away with what he did?
Yeah.
Why would you know uh, these school shootings? Why would they have happened? Why was JFK assassinated? If people had the ability to go back in time and stop that from happening, why
Yeah.
didn't they? And you don't know how much you're going to change. If you don't change something, how much is it going to change something in the future? If you do, I mean, I'm sorry, if you
Yeah. Yeah.
do change something, what's it going to affect? So it's such a mind-boggling theory and idea that it's like, do, do I think it's? I do think time travel is possible, especially if there's going to be wormholes. Why
Yes.
not go to you can not only go to different places but different times as well.
Yeah.
So, is it? I don't understand it, and I
No.
don't really have a concrete theory on how it works. But gosh, that's a good question. You guys are killing me today.
We've had a couple of beers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good
No,
though.
so we normally wrap these things up round about the hour mark, and that's exactly where we are. And I
Again,
want to, I know,
I know.
yeah,
I know. I
it's
know.
crazy. It's crazy. I need to ask though, before we let you go,
sure.
what investigations have you got coming up? What have you got that's interesting? Are you going to be out on the trail of Bigfoot anytime soon?
Well, we are going to the location in Florida, which we're going to be doing in September. We do have that coming up. Looking forward to that. We're going to have Ryan Singer is going to be there. Dr. Rebecca Foster, absolute brilliant psychic. And I'm telling you, man, guys, I don't believe in most of that psychic stuff, but man, she's done things that you can't. There's no way. There's literally no way anybody can know. But we'll have Matt Jackson. He's an ITC expert. He's going to be there. Eric Connor from uh, he's got a you hold on. What is it? Can't remember the name of his show. He's going to kill me for that. But he's got a TikTok, and he's got like 1 million followers on it. Great guy. He's a great paranormal guy. He's going to be there. Tabitha, she's going to be coming as well. So we got a nice team that goes down there and works on it. So we'll be doing paranormal. We'll be doing Bigfoot stuff, cryptids, other things as well. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's down in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. So again, just to answer the question, hey, it's the Johnsons. Yes, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us at Tallboy Radio Podcast. And they also want to know, Ed, are you on Instagram?
I think I don't really do anything on, for some reason, every time I do something on Facebook, it shows up on Instagram, or how that works. I don't know. Basically, you can go to at Ed Brown 212. That's my TikTok. Definitely go there, check it out. I've got some fun things on there. I'm going to be putting a lot more stuff on there. I got things ready to go. I just haven't done it yet. But yeah, at Ed Brown 212.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So, Ed, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for joining us. Gaz, have you got any final thoughts?
I've got loads of final thoughts, and it's a shame that we're just over the hour, because again, it's similar to the Bigfoot one. The last time we had Ed on, it feels like we could again just talk for another hour. But again, just reaching out, Ed, massively appreciate your time. I'm wildly fascinated with the things that you investigate, and the paranormal and your investigations, and again, and we said it last time, I'll say it again, we'd love to have you on again talking about future investigations and so on. I am a believer, and I do think that there are things out there that can't currently be explained but need to be, and for that I thank you and your team and all the work that you're trying to do to investigate these things. So huge thank you really from me, and I can't wait till the next time.
I'll make a deal with you. I will come back, but he has to wear a Kenny Anderson jersey instead of a Terry Bradshaw jersey.
Oh, I'm sure we can make that happen.
Can we?
All right. All right.
I can promise not to wear a Steelers jersey. That's the best I can do.
Well, I would say I put my Bears top on, but I'm not
kidding.
sure that's any better if I'm honest. So
I'm a Bengals fan, so the Steelers are like, our arch rivals.
Yeah.
I just man,
you just hate them. Yeah, you can say it, Ed. That's fine.
I just hate them.
You're not the first to say it to me. It's fine.
Yeah, well, and everybody's right.
Oh, gee whiz.
Listen, guys, I appreciate you guys having me on again. I had a great time, like I did last time. It was fun. Let me know if you ever want to do it again. We'll find something.
Yeah,
we will. Yeah,
we will do it again. Well, I think what we can do actually, we can start. Well, I'll look at some famous case files and get Ed's take on it. Maybe the UK ones, because Stuart's been battering us with questions about a UFO case that happened in the UK.
Sure.
So maybe I'll send you some information about that beforehand, and you can give us your opinion and stuff on that. But sorry, Stuart.
Rimshire or
yeah, so it's the RAF base. Is it Bentwater, which I think is in Suffolk, and there was it basically there was a sighting that allegedly crashed into a forest. What is it? So is it Rendlesham Forest? Something like that?
Yes, that's a cool story. Yeah.
Yeah, so Stuart has been asking about that. So perhaps we'll have a take on that next time that you're on.
Yeah,
sure,
definitely.
Absolutely. That'd be fun.
No worries. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for everybody who's asked us questions tonight. And we will be joining you next week when we will be talking about something different altogether.